Welcome to another episode of Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show, where this week we get our first glimpse at the incredible new McLaren F1 successor, the Gordon Murray Automotive T.50.
We also have Cadillac's latest Escalade and a luxury SUV from Mercedes, as well as a new sports coupe from BMW.
Following the recent reveal of the facelifted Bentayga, Bentley has now given us a new flagship version, the Bentayga Speed. Living up to its name, the Speed's twin-turbo 6-litre W12 engine produces 626 brake horsepower, meaning this giant SUV is capable of 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 3.9 seconds on its way to a top speed of 190. But Bentley has also been working to improve the engine's efficiency, with cylinder deactivation allowing half the engine to shut down while cruising to drastically reduce fuel consumption. The Speed gets a big rear spoiler and deeper rear bumper, while inside you'll find a bespoke interior with special Alcantara upholstery and carbon fibre trim, though we prefer the more traditional wood and leather in the standard model. We expect prices to be somewhere north of £180,000, with first deliveries before the end of the year.
In Europe and Asia, when we think of a large SUV, we think of Range Rovers, Q7s and Mitsubishi Shoguns. Across the pond in the States, though, a large SUV is on another scale entirely. This is the all-new 2021 Cadillac Escalade, and it's bigger and bolder than ever. In fact, it's even bigger than the old one, thanks to some extra length in the wheelbase. See this cruising slowly through town and it's immediately recognisable. The German manufacturers may be pioneering huge grilles at the moment, but the Escalade takes it to a whole new level. It gets all the signature Cadillac design elements just scaled up, with long, narrow headlights and a badge the size of a child's face. Naturally, for a car of this bulk, it gets a suitably massive engine, a 6.2-litre V8 with 420 horsepower to be precise, but interestingly, this isn't the only option. For the first time in the Escalade's history, it's available with a diesel motor. While this news is unlikely to strike much good cheer among environmentalists, it is at least a bit greener than the petrol-powered alternative, offering greater fuel economy and just as much torque. This being a Caddy, though, it's more about luxury than power. So Cadillac has fitted the Escalade with its own enhanced suspension technology, including independent rear suspension, magnetic ride control, and air ride adaptive suspension. These features alter the car's height and damping rate of the shock absorbers to create a silky smooth ride. On the road, the Escalade features Super Cruise, which enables hands-free driving on more than 200,000 miles of compatible highways in the United States and Canada, the first of its kind in a large SUV. Some of the features of this tech include automated lane change, driver monitoring systems, and lane offset. But it's when you step inside the leather-lined cabin that the Escalade really starts to make sense. It's beautifully sculpted, mixing European elegance with classic American style. The biggest features are undoubtedly the stunning curved OLED displays, which are an industry first and have a higher pixel density than a 4K television. There are 3 of them in total, one either side of the driver and one behind the steering wheel. All in all, there are 38 inches of total diagonal display range in the Escalade. If 3 displays aren't enough, there are an additional 2 in the rear seats, which feature navigation, streaming and Android support to keep backseat drivers distracted. Besides the entertainment, other interior tech includes a rear camera mirror, night vision, and augmented reality navigation. Cadillac has also partnered with audio specialist AKG for a bespoke sound system. It's a true luxury car then, but it isn't without competition.
This is the latest Lincoln Navigator, and it's gunning for the luxury SUV crown. The Lincoln shares much of its underpinnings with the Ford Expedition and wraps up the same V6 from the Ford in a much more luxurious package. The lavish Lincoln has been our favourite posh American 4x4 until recently, but can it compete against that fabulous Cadillac? Its cabin feels just as fancy as the Escalade, but somehow looks a little more modern despite the Cadillac's fancy screens. Like its rival, it's full to the brim with leather and wood, with a light, airy-feeling cabin. The new Escalade has the Lincoln beat on space and infotainment though. Its 3 front seat displays are much more advanced, while the extra length equates to a bit more room inside.
Neither of these cars, though, are really built for outright practicality. They're luxury cars first, load luggers second, but that sounds like a pretty great combination to us. While they may not offer the elegance of a Mercedes or class of a Range Rover, they provide a uniquely American take on the luxury SUV.
With the success of the four-door coupe trend started by Mercedes with models like the CLS and popular CLA, it seems strange that BMW took so long to release this, the 2 Series Gran Coupe. Following on from the 4-door 8 Series and 3 and 5 and 6 Series GT models, it follows the now familiar recipe of adding a low sweeping roof to create the coupe shape. Based on the new 1 Series rather than the outgoing 2 Series, the 2 Series Gran Coupe uses the same controversial front-wheel drive layout, although this one is a little different. The M235i is, as its name suggests, the sportiest version of the Gran Coupe currently on offer. As such, it gets an all-wheel drive system mated to a turbocharged 2-litre motor, putting out 302 brake horsepower. 0 to 62 miles per hour is dealt with in 4.9 seconds, while top speed is limited to 155. Styling-wise, the Gran Coupe is a clear step away from the outgoing rear-wheel drive 2 Series. The bulbous front end is carried more or less straight over from the 1 Series hatchback, with its silly swollen kidney grills and narrow headlights. Everything else though is brand new. From the A-pillar back, the Gran Coupe is certainly a much more stylish alternative to its hatchback equivalent. The dimensions seem a little odd at first, but when you really take in its side profile, you can't help but admire BMW's ability to transform a practical 5-door into a rakish coupe. Compared to the regular 2 Series, which is actually a proper 2-door coupe, the new car is much more spacious, both in the front and the back, making it a halfway house between the rather cramped 2 Series and the practical 1 Series. But the M235i is about more than just practicality. Standard kit includes launch control, a limited slip differential and adaptive suspension with various different settings depending on your driving style.
However, it's not the only small 4-door coupe with a bit of grunt. This is our class favourite, the Mercedes CLA. There are 2 different AMG versions available, the flagship 45, a 415 brake horsepower monster, or the entry-level 35, which competes directly against the M235i. In fact, on paper, it looks as if the M division has been copying AMG's homework. Both cars produce exactly 302 brake horsepower. Both cars hit 62 from rest in 4.9 seconds, and both have an electronically limited top speed of 155. Both cars are all-wheel drive, and both are slightly less practical versions of regular hot hatchbacks. The only thing that separates them is price. but even that's close, with both cars coming in at just under £40,000. Inside though, it's a clear win for the Mercedes, with all the fabulous bits from a regular A-Class but with some added AMG flair. On the road though, the little AMG feels wonderfully compact, with its diminutive size and responsive steering helping you to maintain some serious momentum. While the optional adaptive suspension offers a surprisingly comfortable ride even in its firmest setting. Sadly though, like the regular A35 hatchback, the noise is a little disappointing. It sounds sporty, but it isn't a particularly nice sound, especially when compared to the raucous 45 version. The A35 though is an altogether more sensible, everyday option. 90% of the time it's as docile and relaxing as a regular CLA, but every now and then, when the mood strikes and the road is clear, it can squat down and fire you towards the next corner at sensational speeds.
Both of these cars are remarkably similar, but for now at least the Mercedes offers the greater range of body styles with a shooting brake estate version, as well as a proper saloon version to add another dose of confusion. They are though both stylish alternatives to already impressive hot hatches.
After the break, the £2.3 million GMA T.50.
Coming up, Gordon Murray's new supercar. But first,
in the wonderful, sometimes confusing world of SUVs, there are models to fit all situations. There's everything from compact Suzuki 4x4s to weirdly racetrack-focused Jeep Cherokees. For style-conscious buyers though, coupe SUVs are all the rage. And this is the latest one, the Mercedes GLE Coupe. Designed to take on the likes of the BMW X6 and Audi Q8, the GLE takes all of the usual Merc quality and packs it into a rakish new body. The new model is even curvier than the outgoing car, with a lower roofline and even less practicality. It is bigger though, both longer and wider, and gets a greater wheelbase for a bit of extra legroom. It is, however, shorter than a regular GLE. Mercedes claims that this is a styling decision to help make the coupe look sportier than its more sensible sibling. From the front, it looks virtually unchanged, using the brand's latest family face and headlight signature. The widescreen is a bit flatter in order to meet the new lower roofline that slopes sharply down towards the rear end. But while this may be far less practical than the more conventional standard car, it still gets a decent boot. Tall objects, however, will have to go on the back seats, but cars like this aren't really chosen for their load-lugging abilities. Inside you get the same dashboard as the regular car. It's beautifully sculptured with all of the current Mercedes luxuries. For now, there are two 6-cylinder diesel options and the 6-cylinder AMG GLE 53, which gets mild hybrid tech and 429 brake horsepower. Power is sent through an all-wheel drive system via the 9-speed auto box. 0 to 62 is dealt with in 5.3 seconds, while the top speed has been limited to 155 miles per hour.
But the GLE is far from the only coupe SUV on the market right now. This is the new BMW X6. Like the Mercedes, it's longer and wider than the model it replaces and will be available with a range of petrol and diesel engines, topping out with the V8-powered M50i. And while it still looks pretty much like any other X6, the M50i is anything but normal. With 524 brake horsepower on tap, the 4.4-litre twin-turbo V8 can hit 62 miles per hour in 4.3 seconds, making this a real performance car. All versions come as standard with four-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic gearbox and a load of fancy kit, including adaptive air suspension, a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot, and BMW's new Gesture control system, which allows you to control the infotainment system by moving your hands around. It takes some getting used to, and if we're honest, it is a bit of a gimmick, but it's good fun and will keep your passengers amused on longer journeys. And then the in-your-face Audi Q8, a monster of a car guaranteed to turn heads wherever it goes. On the outside, this isn't simply a Q7 with a slopey roof. The whole front end has been changed to look more aggressive and reminiscent of the R8 supercar. There are some wonderful details too, like the frameless doors, unique in this class, and the eye-catching LED headlights. Audi has gone to some real effort to distinguish the Q8 from the rest of its broad SUV lineup. The interior is just as impressive, with superb infotainment and a real feeling of quality and durability throughout. Like the others, the Q8 is available with a range of petrol and diesel mild hybrid options, with the range topping out with the really rather silly 600 horsepower RS Q8 that gets from 0 to 62 in just 3.8 seconds.
All of these cars are bought because of the way they look. The regular GLE, X5 and Q7 are all cheaper and more practical than their respective coupe equivalents, so it's hard to really recommend any of them. But if you simply must have a luxury SUV with a sloping roof, it's the Audi that gets our vote for the styling alone.
Modern supercars have come a long way from their predecessors of the 20th century. Festooned with carbon fibre aero trickery, incredibly advanced driving modes, and automatic gearboxes to make driving them as easy as driving a family saloon. With turbochargers allowing for smaller engines and paddle shift gearboxes minimising the time it takes to change gear, it seems that the age of heel and towing to a V12 soundtrack is sadly behind us. Or is it? This is the new GMA T.50, the car that Gordon Murray, designer of the McLaren F1, has been promising us for a while now, and it aims to change the supercar rulebook. Look closely and you'll spot 3 pedals and the central driving position. In the back sits a Cosworth V12, the highest revving road car engine ever made, with the red line sitting at 12,100 RPM. Look around the car and the McLaren F1 influence is clear. The car's nose is low and unspoiled by big splitters, while the headlights, bonnet and roof scoop all help it to look like a modern-day F1. Gordon Murray has been keen to use the 90s icon as a benchmark.
Everything the McLaren F1 gave you from a driving experience point of view has been taken to a new level. The car at 980 kilos is about half a ton lighter than the average supercar. And the aerodynamics, we steered clear of having very obvious ducts and aerodynamic forms. And actually the fan has been the element that's allowed us to keep the car pure.
And it's that fan that's key to the T50's pure design, eliminating the need for big spoilers. Like another car from Murray's back catalogue, the infamous 1978 Brabham BT46B Formula 1 car, the large fan creates 15 kilograms of downforce. It's stacking up as a bit of a Gordon Murray greatest hits then, and that's by no means a bad thing. The 690 horsepower 4-litre V12 sits beneath a large rear canopy behind the 3-seater cabin, entered through some typically outrageous doors.
The interior of the T50 is absolutely even more focused than the F1. The feel of the switches, the haptics, everything is machined from solid. The whole experience of not just sitting in the center, but the way the layout is all around you and driver focus. We've just taken this to a completely new level for high-speed cars.
Top speed and acceleration figures have not been revealed because, according to Professor Murray, they're not important. But we expect the T50 to be challenging the likes of the Ferrari SF90 Stradale and McLaren's own F1 successor, the Speedtail. Just 100 T50s will be built, each costing £2.36 million before taxes. It's a hefty price tag, but when you consider the going rate for a McLaren F1 is now upwards of 20 million, we'd say it's a bit of a bargain.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we take a look at the all-new Audi S3.